It is Monday, and we are back. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, 234 King Street East out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. The Stadium Series. Huh? Right? White uniforms? Nice. No, I take that back. Not nice. What are you thinking? Think I'm starting to drain a little bit on that whole concept. The Raptors continue to win and continue to win. This offensive philosophy they've had going into the season, you always wonder if it's against the grain of what the coach resume is, which is defense for Dwayne Casey. But they have got this thing down. And right now, I think if they don't at least go to the conference final, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think that would be a fail. That would be an absolute fail at this point, based on the season they've had so far. A season where I don't think anyone south of the border even talks about the Raptors. Why? Ken McDonald, who is the chief officer of Team Snap. If you haven't heard of it, I got to be honest right now, that you're going to be in the minority. Tens upon tens of millions have this app that allows you to organize not only within your team events, management, coaching, the players. It's very sophisticated and a brilliant idea. And so we had Tammy Granado. Tammy Granado is part of Team Snap. She came on, about a month ago. So the chief officer of Team Snap going to join us in studio in about 20 minutes time or so. Also, we have humiliating videos, once again, of things where they should go right and they go completely wrong. But as you know, this is the show that enjoys that kind of thing. If it's going to go backwards or go south, I want to see it. Looking at the NHL as we get started, they had once again, the excitement of the Stadium Series. They go down, they play at the Naval Academy. Yep. And once again, an outdoor game where the excitement of playing outdoors. Are you still with us? Are you still on it? Because the fact remains, as a professional league, these are 2 points that count. Now, depending on where your team is at this point, how sensitive are those 2 points going to be whether you win or lose? Now, for the Leafs, Dave, no matter what they do to a degree, whoever they face, does it really matter? If you're going to get Boston, if you're going to get, you have a tangle of teams that you probably really can't avoid. Is that fair to say?
That is very fair to say. And if you somehow get past that first team, you got the second team sitting in front of you. I don't think the Maple Leafs are going to win a first round, and that's okay. It's still a growing period for this franchise. I don't think they were heavy buyers at the trade deadline for good reason. They gave themselves a little bit of a bolster, a little bit of a Band-Aid in Thomas Plekanec. But for the most part, man, you're facing Boston in the first round. I don't like their chances. A healthy Patrice Bergeron should be back by then, considering the foot should be healed, but we'll have to see. Hopefully for the Leafs, Austin Matthews makes a return sometime soon, because that just hasn't been even updated lately.
No. And I got to be honest, I'm taking a look at the, even from the television perspective, I don't want to see any more of those games. Not only were the Leaf uniforms annoying, going white on white ice. By the way, Trump loves the all-white. But the angle of the cameras suck. The game itself, do you see the shadows on the ice, Dave?
It was terrible.
So
they were fluorescent white uniforms on white ice with white bright lights over top. It just looked terrible.
It looked terrible. But imagine playing it. I've not played an outdoor game with the kind of lighting that they have. So before people start getting on Frederik Andersen, when you go from the glare and the creepy white into the shadows of the guys coming down, I just don't know, if you're the NHL, why someone in the booth or someone sitting beside Gary and you're saying, Gary, this doesn't look very good. Show it up. I'm sitting in seat number 99. Enough already. Or sparingly, maybe 2 a year. But I don't even know if it doesn't look right and it doesn't play right, it shouldn't be in a professional game, because I'm telling you, if I was management and those 2 points really counted, maybe you're a bubble team.
Oh, yeah.
That might cost you your season and getting the playoffs.
And this late in the season, too, makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
I don't get that at all. And that's not to say that games in November make the difference. But you know what? On this schedule, yeah, it absolutely does. Thanks, Russell. Yeah, there you go again.
Yeah, thanks for doing something, Russell.
No. He made up for it. I just made a little bit of a blunder on television, but nobody sees it because I'm not on. You know what? Honestly, I look at that saying, you know what? Play them in November, if anything. Get them out of the way. Move it on. Your last game of the Stadium Series or Heritage Classic or whatever you want to call it should be that January 1st game, which actually makes sense.
Yeah, you do a New Year's game where it's bowl season and you're in American City and all of a sudden in your stadium you've got an event. I get that. And once again, I know it's for the locals, just like an All-Star game is. But at this point, that thing looked terrible. It played terrible. Then I think the stadium was so offended by how awful the game was, the stadium decided to turn the lights out on it. So even the stadium had enough of it.
Go Undertaker on them, eh?
I just,
Yes, that.
Oh,
that
jeez,
right
I got to be able to do that thing. The problem is you want to faint after you do it when you put your eyeballs in the back.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find that picture again. Maybe I can somehow doll it up. But so the Leafs lose, but once again, they're in a situation where I think most Leaf fans, and we'll see if that is true when we talk to this Leaf fan. Come on, music. Don't be afraid to play.
Our favorite Leaf fan? Our favorite Leaf fan in studio?
Does it really matter necessarily for you? Because playoffs are the playoffs. You're going to play a good team. Does it really matter who you play? Because if it's Boston, which it looks like it's going to be, then you'd have to get through Tampa Bay. You're playing the best out of the division. You've already played these teams, and you've beaten these teams, to be honest.
Yep.
You have. So I don't think you're going to get your nuts in a knot over the playoffs. I don't think necessarily.
No, it wasn't a big deal as far as the playoffs go. It was just annoying that I spent a Saturday night watching that terrible game.
So even you thought a Leaf game was terrible. Oh.
You said it on a microphone, too.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh. Yikes. I wouldn't want to be him.
Yep.
It was not a great game.
Russell Graham blocked. That's what you said. That's what Lou Lamoriello.
Give me back that Leaf Nation hat and sticker and what else you got? A bib, probably. A
that
t-shirt.
does it, that little bastard. Blocked.
There
you go, Lou.
Exactly.
And he's got facial hair. You've got facial hair.
Yeah.
Blocked.
So, Toronto and Buffalo tonight to face the Sabres. Chad Johnson is confirmed starter for the Sabres. So, enjoy Stat Night, Maple Leafs. It is Stat Night in Buffalo. Always one of my favorite times of year when you have Stat Night. You always, on the schedule, even if you played House League, Tier 1, Tier 2, there's always a Stat Night. This is the NHL's version of Stat Night.
But every time I touch it, every time Buffalo plays, they go into Boston and win. They go into they lose to St. Louis like one Cobb. That was it. Robin Leonard, oh my God, he's the greatest goalie now we've ever seen. Come on.
Don't worry.
I'm not touching it.
This is at least this should be a Maple Leaf win by at least 3 to 4 goals.
Oh, by the way, apparently no one's listening, including the NHL office, to what we say because the NHL planning more outdoor games at West Point and Air Force Academy.
Yes.
Come on. I get that there's heritage, but it's lost once the game looks like garbage. I don't know what the point is of paying tribute to something and then putting on a performance that really, it's not the player's fault. I mean, if you're the players, I'm like, I don't want to do these anymore. I'd love the player to go, this sucks.
Well, you know what? From a financial point of view, they look at this and go, one of these stadium games is probably worth the cost of what 2 or 3 home games would generate in revenue. Because you talk about all the stuff that happens around the stadium, all the stuff that is purchased, the fan base itself. I know this was only a small one, but 34,000, whatever it was. That's almost like putting two National Hockey League games in one night, kind of thing. So it's a lot. Increase in revenue is the reason why the NHL will not shy away from this, and every single team wants on board. It's a Me Too generation, and you know what? Who wants to make money? Me Too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You sign up, you get your turn, and you move on.
Any other news in the NHL? It's funny. We said at trade deadline, the asking price is always a little iffy. It's always on this end. You're always going to overpay. So the trade deadline, to me, again, another reason why I call it the Valentine's Day of the sporting world, because it's just not worth buying on that day. Pacioretty out with a lower body injury. And he was the one that was like, do you want, like what they were going to ask for him? Hey, welcome to our team. Thanks. Ow!
Yeah. No. Don't have to worry about it. You're
Yeah.
still on the same team, right?
Yeah.
So, I did want, before we wrap up the NHL stuff, I did want to talk about Patrick Laine, who's become the fifth all-time teenager in goals scored, surpassing Steve Yzerman, closing in on Wayne Gretzky for the most ever goals scored by a teenager in the National Hockey League.
Is this a shout out to our good friend Ted Nesbitt, Ted the Viking, who's enjoying the sunshine in the Cayman Islands?
That's exactly what it is, especially on Friday where Patrick Laine scored another 2 goals against the Red Wings. And if you actually Google search owner of the Detroit Red Wings, there's a picture of Patrick Laine. So another 2 goals, 2 goals yesterday, and the Jets continue their 6-game road trip with 5 more to go tomorrow in New York City against the Rangers.
In a couple of minutes here, we're going to talk to, in studio, Ken McDonald, Chief Officer of Team Snap. It's really a brilliant idea, and you think of the years that coaches and parents spent scrambling. This is pre-mobile lifestyle, but just the fact that you were able to organize the team the way you do. And look, those watching today probably know it's in the millions because, it's 10, 15 million, maybe even bigger. But Ken McDonald will come in studio and tell us more about it. But just before we do that, the Raptors continue to win. They beat Charlotte. Actually, they sweep Charlotte, but granted may not be as hard as
Charlotte used to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Well, they used to when they were even when they were terrible, they would stumble. This is the difference. They're playing some consistent ball. I think Ibaka's a big part of that. If you saw the threes last night, which is kind of a little bit of this persona they've taken on this year for the Raptors and the change offensively, at least philosophically, even Jonas Valanciunas, right? Because you normally leave these big guys out there, and he stands there like a statue. The crowd's all cheering, and he chucked up a couple of threes. Like JV is getting the threes, but the Raptors now at 45-17. They've got a home record in which we will see them probably surpass what they did last year.
Yep.
Which broke a record. It is going to be very interesting, and I would suggest, and I think the Raptor fans are probably thinking this too, but if they don't get to at least a conference final, I think it's a fail right now.
Yeah,
At the beginning of the year, I wasn't even entertaining that, seeing what Boston had done and seeing what Cleveland had done. The only guy who disagreed with all of that, the only guy, he was in the studio. He's been in the studio.
Will Strickland?
Nope.
No.
He was on with, his brother was on with really small shorts the other day.
Leo Routon.
Leo Routon said
really?
He goes, I don't think that Boston, he goes, just because, don't count Boston in immediately, and Cleveland still has to play. And he, you know what? He was right. Maybe he should be making our bets.
You know what's really good, too, about the Eastern Conference? It's exactly the way Toronto wants it right now, with Boston at number 2, Cleveland at number 3. Stay on that side of the ledger.
Yeah, be on that side.
The only thing I'm scared about is a first-round matchup with the Miami Heat is tougher than you think.
Well, and the Heat play them tough. They do. They play them tight. It's one of those. But I think this is one of those years where, at least they've got guys on the team that have, they've been through playoffs. They've won a couple of playoff rounds. So if you're both Kyle and DeMar, but they didn't have guys like Ibaka, and they don't have. And I'll be honest, the second unit coming on and eating other teams alive. If we're being honest, that's the biggest difference. Second unit comes on. Normally it's like, can we hold the lead or maybe only go down a bit? They are eating other teams alive. That second unit has been nothing short of fantastic. Again, it's a philosophical thing, but you also need the kinds of players. You need guys like Van Vliet playing well, and it's all working out. Going to be exciting, I think, in Toronto in the spring because of that.
And I still like the Raptors to win that series. Here's the interesting part, too. If everything starts today, which it isn't, but it's almost the way these teams are juggling, it's going to be one of these teams. Boston would open up against Milwaukee. That's not a walk in a park for Boston to play Milwaukee. And Cleveland would open up against Philadelphia.
That's interesting.
See, because if I'm looking at that and you give me the right amount of points, I'm taking the 76ers in the upset there.
The 76ers are such a wild card because of those athletes they have on there and get a chance to prove themselves against LeBron and a team that's not playing to the abilities, I guess, they thought when the season started. So look, we'll do basketball, and then we'll go to Ken McDonald, who is the chief growth officer of
Yes.
Team Snap.
Just added that in there. Sorry.
And it's a fascinating story. It really is. But taking a look at the Raptors last night, property of the National Basketball Association and NBA broadband properties. Here's what it looked last night as the Raptors love them some threes.
5 on the shot clock. Walker guards him, up fake, looking for some space, and a big three. Good! The big three from Kyle Lowry from Whitney Pier. 4 through 8.
Paul George trade worked out pretty well for them.
How about Victor Oladipo? And the three by DeRozan.
Good offensive rebounding technique.
Boom.
That time by Valanciunas.
DeMar drives, and the foul.
And the foul. Here's what's interesting about that. He actually gets a call, and that foul, to be honest, was a little borderline. So, Roast Beef, if you want to round up Ken, I'll talk to you for a couple of seconds, and then I'll throw to exactly what we're talking about. But days gone by, and not that far away, Dave, the Raptors never got a call. That was a little dubious whether that was a real foul or not.
I was going to say, are we seeing a changing of the guard with refereeing in the Toronto Raptors?
I think they're getting a little to me, that call was all about respect, which is about time.
Yep.
Again, I don't like it when they call it because of a certain player's status, but when you take a look at that,
I'll buy that. I'll buy that when the Raptors are getting those calls in the postseason, because that's the difference between regular season, postseason. We'll see what happens.
So you're from Missouri.
I'm from Missouri.
That's
yes.
what you're saying.
Yes.
Show me. That's what you want to see.
Hey.
Okay, Ken McDonald's going to come in here and explain Team Snap, which is it's brilliant in its inception. And when you think about, and this is from a son of a coach, what used to happen in the 70s and the 80s and how you would try to get
this is from a coach today.
parents, and
exactly.
it is just a nightmare. Well, that has all changed, and changed to the tune of probably tens of millions, at least, who've bought into Team Snap. Tammy Granado, who was on, I would say, about a month and change ago.
Cammy was on with us, yeah.
Cammy, sorry. Wonderful story. So we'll do that. And here's a look exactly what Team Snap can do for you. And there you have it, Team Snap. And you're probably looking at it, wondering, what does it do? What is it about? How can this possibly help the organization of whether it's my daughter's, what are they called? The dinosaurs?
Yeah, we're the
Triceratops?
Yeah, exactly. I coach T-ball team, Ken. So first, second year coach. Last year was my first year. So the team is out there again, and we're ready to go in about a month's time. It's going to get a little bit warmer than this. It's usually a little warmer than this in Toronto. And welcome to the city. Good to have you.
Ken McDonald.
I
Sorry.
like the team name, by the way. Mine was the paper bags this year. So yeah.
Ken McDonald is the, what do we say, the chief growth officer. So is this something that you've coined? I'm not familiar with a growth officer, but it's something that I know that you are very well respected in doing, and certainly with Team Snap, they're aware of that.
It's kind of a new title you're seeing these days. So I run sales, marketing, and analytics at the company. Basically, I'm in charge of getting us more customers. That's kind of a simple way to say it.
So if people are asking Team Snap, what is it? What is the explanation of it to those who have never heard of this before?
Yeah, it's really so that, it's an app so that as a parent, you know where you got to be, what uniform the kids got to wear, who's paid their tournament fees, just kind of where you got to be.
It's almost like an assistant coach in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, it allows everybody from the players, parents, and coaches to focus on the sport itself and not have to worry so much about the logistics and the communication, and really just kind of have fun with the sport.
And you're dealing with an industry, and we're talking about youth sports, that is a multi-billion-dollar industry. How has it jumped that fast to when we were kids and we all played sports as kids, and now it's everywhere, and they're playing year-round too. And we're talking about sports that play year-round. Before, I play hockey for 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
Then it was baseball or soccer. Now it's that full whole hockey team.
Absolutely.
Same thing with every other sport.
Yeah, and it has changed, and it is big dollars. I mean, I've seen, I think the lowest number I've seen for North America is $20 billion, and I've seen some that go quite a bit higher than that. I mean, I think there's just more options than when we were kids. I mean, most of the options when we were playing either was involved with school, or you practice once and then you play once on the weekend or something like that. And now, I mean,
they play like pros now.
Yeah, I mean, they play or practice pretty much every day of the week. They're traveling to tournaments all over the place, and that's very common. And I don't think I think overall the option to do that is a really good thing. I mean, because there are some kids who they, when you've got kind of the neighborhood leagues, they're just blowing it out, blowing away all the other kids. And for them, they need to go to kind of the next level or two up. So that's kind of what I think drove it in the first place. But you do have to match up what level your kid's playing at to make sure that you're not putting them over their head.
Well, it's a tremendous communication tool, I mean, to begin with. And what you can do within that app is also probably pretty extraordinary compared to the old days of, did you phone Mr. Jones? When's your practice? I don't know. Bug me. I don't remember. Do you find also, are we talking NCAA? University level using this?
Oh yeah, we've got all different levels. And first off, about 70% are the teams are kids, 30% are adults. A lot of softball, a lot of adult hockey, and then in terms of more competitive, we've got some pro teams that
really?
use us. There was a pro hockey team in Warsaw that was doing a lot with us, and so definitely a lot of collegiate teams. Having said that, there are a lot more kids that are playing hockey or soccer when they're 5 years old than there are collegiate teams. So our focus is definitely on where the most people are playing sport than necessarily on the collegiate and pro teams.
So how does Team Snap as a company compete and thrive against competitors like Jerry Jones has something that is up against Team Snap? NBC has their own little program. How do you guys compete against, I guess, some of the heavyweights of the media industry where you guys are trying to build your way in and push those guys around instead?
Well, I mean, we actually had a lot of market share from, well ahead of some of those companies, and a lot of it came from we built this company to solve our own problems.
Sure.
And a lot of the people who built the company, their expertise was building apps that were really easy to use. And our approach was always that if the customers couldn't figure it out, then that was our problem. So as a result, if there's a company that goes through the Apple Store and rates all the 2 million apps out there based on, ranks them based on the ratings the customers give, and we have been as high as the 6th highest app out of all 2 million.
Oh, wow.
By comparison, the Bible is number 1. So that spot is kind of locked down.
They have a couple of years on you, don't they?
Yeah.
And a lot more writers.
So, it's just customers really love the app. And that has always been our approach to go into the market. If you do that, it's hard to go wrong.
So for those that want to acquire, so this is something, so let's say it's a brand new team. It's a guy like Dave, and you're trying to organize your daughter's T-ball team. So what is the process for those watching here today thinking, this is a really good idea, I want to check this out? How are they going to do this?
If you're an individual coach or team manager, you can just sign up on the website. There's a free trial, and then there's either a free plan or there are paid plans that cost sort of a minimal amount per month. And you can also do the same thing in the apps themselves. You can go pull them down from the Apple Store or Google Play. The other side is if you're coming from, say, an association or a club that wants to use it, you can go to the website and then and then usually you're working with one of our specialists on that. You can sign up to have the whole club on, and that's a little bit of a different conversation. Say, hey, I've got 100 teams. I want them to all use us. Want to collect all the money for the upcoming season, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I would think that if I'm part of one of those organizations, if I have, let's say 50, 70, 100 teams, and again, in order to understand where sometimes tensions arise, it comes from the lack of communication or poor communication, or how come that person said this when that person, this clears all of that up.
It does, especially if they do a good job of sort of broadcasting the expectations of the parents. I think, what you're talking about is sort of the cross between expectation setting and communications. And TeamSnap definitely makes it a lot easier to do that. So if you sort of tell parents, hey, first game's coming up, here's the behavior, here's kind of the background of the club, and here's how we're planning to run it, and you're sending those messages out kind of before and after the game, that can really, as you said, clear up a lot of that. But it's not just to be clear, the tool goes so far that the club definitely has to be setting some of that expectation.
Well, Dave, how old are the girls?
4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, he's throwing bats on the field just so you know, during the game.
I'm kind of a Lou Piniella.
Yeah, I was going to say Bobby Knight is one of what is going on over there. But again, you talk about, I guess, what I'm talking about, the genesis or sort of the idea that this is going to happen. Who did this? Who came up? What is the brainchild of who? Is this yours?
It is not mine. There were actually a couple of different guys. So one of them on our team, Andrew Berkowitz, who he was building websites by day, and as I was alluding to earlier, kind of his specialty was making sites that were very easy for people to use, and he had. He wrote the early code to make this happen, and was for one of his teams. And then he got connected with our CEO, Dave DuPont, who's a business guy. He'd come out of Harvard Business School, and he was looking.
I've heard that's good, by the way. Harvard. I wrote that down the other
good
day.
Things about that. And the two of them connected, and they were just a really good match of kind of bringing that product side with the business side, and kind of away they went. And I got involved shortly thereafter, first as an advisor, and then helping them grow the business.
Well, let's hope those Garf Finkel twins or whatever they're called. Let's hope they don't claim that they did it first. What are those freaky kids? Aren't they also?
I know. They were
Van den Voss and whatever they are.
Facebook.
With
we did
Facebook.
Facebook first.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Facebook.
Yeah,
no,
right.
Exactly. Your relationship with Hockey Canada. Why the partnership, and how does that work? And that's obviously a big feather in your cap, considering what this country, Canada, is all about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hockey was how we really got a lot of penetration in Canada. We actually have 8 times the penetration in Canada that we do in the States, and a lot of that just came from because it was a really good fit with hockey. I mean, nobody wants to get to practice at 5:30 in the morning if you're if that's the wrong time.
Yeah.
So we actually we started chatting with Hockey Canada, and we realized that 80% of the teams that are part of Hockey Canada are already using TeamSnap. So we basically at that point said, you know what, it's time to, and they were looking to modernize the technology that they use, and we said, this feels like a pretty good fit. You know? So that's kind of where it started, and the goal is just really to streamline the whole process from kids registering in the fall to the communication stuff that we've been talking about, and then all the way down at the team level of just kind of coaches staying involved, or in communication with the parents, letting people know where they got to be, all that kind of stuff.
So what's the feedback then? Like how does that work? Because I assume an app like this, because it's got a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces to it, but I would think input from those that use it must be very, very constructive, I would think.
Oh yeah, and people are not shy about it, certainly. I mean, one of the pieces of that, obviously there's social media and the app stores and things like that. But we've always, from the early days, had we overinvested in support, and we had support 24, well, not quite 24/7, but 7 days a week, almost every hour of the day, and people would write into us and just give us lots of feedback. And actually, in the early days, everyone from the CEO on down was on support. So there was a lot of communication that way, and that was a lot of how, in the early days, we sort of figured out what worked and what didn't. And again, as I talked about that cultural part, that the CEO was very clear. Look, our cultural value is if people don't understand the product, that's our problem. We screwed up, and I don't think a lot of tech companies necessarily take that approach.
Well, I'm sure it led to a lot of interesting moments early upon its inception, I would think. But it is again, when you think about from the business standpoint, where are the biggest numbers? And as you said, do you look at pros and NCAA? Well, I would think even things like youth soccer in U.S. soccer programs across the country. Millions upon millions of kids. I mean, this is the one thing that, hockey, grassroots, and soccer to a degree, I would say, is also probably a growth sport here. But in the U.S., as much as Europeans don't want to hear about it, the numbers must be just staggering that must use a service like this.
Yeah, I mean, we're between 15 and 20 million users worldwide in 196 countries, and soccer is the number one sport. With the exception of hockey, pretty much everything else follows the kind of how many kids play, or adults play that sport.
Sure.
As I mentioned, hockey's kind of the one exception where we just see above average adoption because of some of the logistics that we talked about. So
what's next for Team Snap? Anything on the horizon?
Well, I think a lot of the focus is some of the things that we've sort of alluded to, in that we started as a product for individual coaches and team managers, and now what we're seeing a lot more of is sports organizations saying, I want to use this for the whole thing. I want to just collect the money up front. I want to get the waivers, build the website, send the emails to everybody, have a tool for the coaches to make sure everybody's on board. And there's a lot more around that, and particularly around the payment side. As the sports have gotten more expensive, has gotten to be more painful for a lot of these organizations. And if they don't collect the money properly, they're in deep trouble. So that certainly is a big area. But that whole helping the sports organization is growing like crazy. We grew in that area. We're pretty much doubling in that area, from a revenue standpoint right now, which is really exciting for us.
Now, personally speaking, we should tell everybody about your book. You are a successful author, a marketing expert, from what I understand.
I'm a successful author, but an author,
Wow.
There's a couple of them in the room.
My offensive book that went out a couple of years ago. We'll trade books. We'll see if we get ideas from each other.
Yeah, sounds good.
You use a lot of those principles in working with Team Snap, or is that something a little bit different when it comes to
it came out of the book came out of Team Snap. So I've been involved with a couple of different businesses that have scaled to, kind of million. One case it was $500 million that we sold through the web, and another business that was 12 million users, and now with Team Snap, where we're closing in on 20 million users. So I just periodically get questions from people, actually on a fairly regular basis.
Sure,
hey, what do I do to kind of scale businesses up into this
I'm
range?
about to ask you one about this show right away.
Sure. And so I used to have like 8 pages of notes that I would give people, and I always felt really disorganized about it. And then at one point I said, I'm going to just kind of clean this up, and I realized, I'm getting partway to having a book. So, and I had a buddy who was sort of in the same place, and luckily he had previously been a professional author. So we just teamed up to write the book and basically put down all the practices that we'd use to scale up Team Snap and some other businesses.
Should tell everybody listening, because it is a long title. It's called "How to Acquire Your First Million Customers: Scaling Your Online Business by Laying the Foundation of Growth." So that's by Ken McDonald, and just a little plug for your book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so now that we realize you're smart, and we have a lot of not smart people because you're looking at 2 of them, and certainly he doesn't count, even though he thinks he's smarter than us. What's school for you? What's university for you?
Where did I go to school?
Yes.
I went undergrad Dartmouth, and then I went Stanford for graduate school.
Oh, so.
Now that doesn't mean they're all smart people there, but
so you're a cardinal, which, by the way, is a big tree. As we've come to find out.
That is not the best mascot,
no.
But there was at one point that the students did vote for the steaming manhole covers. That was the mascot they wanted, and I definitely was more supportive of that.
You watch a Pac-12 game, and I'm like, what's a pine tree doing on the sidelines? Who lost that bet? And so March Madness is big for you. I would think that the Pac-12 has not had a particularly stunning year this year. I look at even Bobby Hurley's team. Arizona State has fallen off a cliff. Neither the Buffaloes nor the Rams are going to be making any appearances, and even USC, UCLA. Well, it just has not been a West Coast kind of year, but it's been a little bit of a goofy year. Are you an NCAA guy?
You know, I do have. I wouldn't say I'm huge into March Madness. I have season tickets to the CU Buffs, and obviously watch my alma mater passionately. But that's probably in basketball about as deep as it goes. I mean, I'll watch.
So do you cheer against, for instance, I don't know, Harvard or Yale? Do you have?
For sure, for sure. That's an easy question.
Oh, fantastic! Once again, Team Snap. If you're just hearing about this for the first time, I would say certainly do your due diligence and investigate. Just even in the background of we've heard today from Ken just how successful it is, and we'll only keep on going because in terms of the organizing of that many pieces. I mean, I have not coached little ones beforehand, but as a high school football coach, you're constantly dealing with. Well, I didn't know we were supposed. I mean, that's just kind of the drill. This cleans a lot of that up. And as you say, if you're an organization that wants to take responsibility for parents' conduct, the conduct of your athletes, of your children, this lays a foundation where all this can be crystal clear in terms of its communication. But in terms of organizing, this is fantastic. So we appreciate you coming in here today, Ken.
Absolutely. And see, even at my level, Ken, not only do I have to organize practices, games, everything like that, but I also have a list for which parents are bringing the snacks, and that's critical too. And you can cover that with Team Snap.
There are a couple different options in Team Snap exactly for that. Trust me, that topic comes up an awful lot.
There
it's
you
amazing
go.
how and that actually does go very much to the essence of the tool, was so that people could focus on coaching and not worry about the snacks. And
Bingo.
That kind of stuff.
If Mrs. Smith is bringing the cupcakes at the end of the day.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So.
Can you put that in there? Bring cupcakes?
You can
I might set up a
definitely
team just to get baked goods.
Well,
I got to be honest.
Usually it's fruits and stuff like that.
No. This is like,
Granola bars and.
I know the coach just said to bring tequila. Who is this coach? Who is this, Bob Huggins?
That's adult talk.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Ken, thanks so much for coming in today. Actually, you know what we'll do, Russell? We'll show the commercial going out as well. It's a small studio, and otherwise they're like, why have we seen Team Snaps back? Well, it's because we haven't prepared in time. But thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you guys for having me on the show.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll talk again. And if you're not, again, you missed sort of the beginning of it, looking at what Team Snap is, and they put together a couple of on YouTube. If people want to look at it this way, just how effective a tool like that can be. Here it is. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks.
There it is. Once again, that is Team Snap, and a huge thanks to Ken McDonald. Joining us here this morning, the Chief Growth Officer, and again, author of that book as well that talks about online businesses. So I think all in all, pretty, for a Monday,
Yeah, very interesting.
very
too.
educational show,
Oh,
which
it's true.
this almost never is.
And you know what, Mike? We do have a pretty good audience that has a daughter, a son that plays rec hockey, men's league. I know one of our our loyal listeners, Coach Frank, coaches his AAA 13 and 14-year-old group of kids, Toronto Titans. They use Team Snap to organize their league, and they put he says the stuff that they could do on that saves the coaching staff so much time in organization really helps. Russell, for example, plays rec hockey at Ryerson. If they wanted to organize their league, their practices, schedules, everything, he could do it. I could do it for girl and boy t-ball. It at every level of sport, whatever it is, hockey, baseball, if you have a golf team, if you have anything like that, TeamSnap is the way to go. It's easy to find in the App Store, and obviously by looking at the numbers, very, very popular worldwide.
You're watching rawmike.com either on the website or, for many of you, and actually most of you, on the dedicated YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe. It's right there at the bottom there. I think
Click.
And click on that. We appreciate that. Saw that through the weekend, even though we have not been on since Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes.
We're a very relaxed show here. We
show up when we can.
We do what we can. Don't push us. By the way, speaking of pushing things, this is just, and this is why when I take a look and hear about Blue Jay expectations, I'm like, okay, every year, this is for every human being. That's why when people talk about Tiger Woods, it's nice if you might make an appearance here and there in some of the majors or just some of the tournaments, period. I guess some people still a little infatuated with the Tiger story. But the reality is that if there are issues, it's very rare that someone, as they get older, magically start to heal themselves and they become stronger. It's not a comic book. So Troy Tulowitzki, who has a contract that makes it very difficult for him to go.
Nice way of putting it, though.
I'm trying to be very polite here,
yeah,
Dave.
Very, very polite.
He's unlikely to be a part of the opener for health reasons. And I take a look at that. Then you've got Marcus Stroman, who was it a shoulder issue, and it's starting to kind of right itself in a way that I think is not that unpredictable. In that you've got a team that's the core group is, I guess, even compared to the majors, Dave. If you're talking about the essence of the team and the mean average age of the Blue Jays, I think they're one of the oldest.
Yeah,
I think they're one of the oldest.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's you know what? I know we're early in spring training, but it hasn't been a very good start to spring for the Blue Jays as far as the injuries that you mentioned, and these are ones that are going to linger on. So when you pull your starting shortstop out, when you pull your number one starter, because Marcus Stroman was supposed to be the opening day starter, these are pretty significant. But I look at this and go, was this team supposed to finish above third?
No.
I think third might be the I guess the foundation of a decent season based on what you have on the field.
If we're looking at teams' early money, I don't know if you can still do futures. Are we saying that the Astros, are they probably the odds-on favorite?
They are the big-time odds-on favorites right now. Sorry, I'm just texting with Warren Saku, who will join us in studio tomorrow. Warren Saku in studio.
Yes, sir. Warren Saku, a great young man who's going to join us tomorrow on the show. Yes, sir.
Now, how weird is it to not hear that voice?
Yeah, I know.
Like, even listen to it, I'm like,
big time weird. I was listening this weekend in the car, and it's like, yeah, I guess this is what it's going to be like forever now.
Can you imagine trying out for that job and just out of impulse they go, there's a pitch, it's a long fly ball, and
there she goes.
No. No.
You can't use that.
No, you can't do that. And I'll tell you, even culturally, it's a real jarring feel to be sitting there doing whatever. And again, it's a pastime, which means that game goes on seemingly forever, and these guys become the backdrop to your spring, to your summer, whatever you do relaxing, and that voice is gone, so that's going to take a while to get used to that. Other things, of course, Selection Sunday in NCAA basketball, for those that follow it, will be on TBS this year, which is kind of weird. And this is going to be a very interesting selection period, only because, and I would caution you, for those that want to make up brackets, and I know most people cheat. Most people just go to the internet and they look at they just fill it out. It's not like offices around Canada, all of a sudden Sally knows a whole bunch about Big 12 or Big 10. You know what I mean? It just doesn't.
The frauds come out to play on Selection Sunday.
Forget about the seedings, okay? Just, forget about it, because it is so, the 1 through 16, you take a look at some of these teams and you're like, well, how do they have it? Well, this year, more than almost any other year, I can't say that I have this tremendous gut feeling on who's going to win. Are there teams that played better than others? Yeah. Like Virginia. When Virginia is on, I think Virginia could win the whole thing. But that's the beauty of March Madness. You just never know, and you get Lipscomb. It's a real school, by the way, the one that's not known in Nashville. And they're like one of the smallest schools, or smaller than Belmont, and they're going to go to the dance. I'm not saying that they're going to come in and they're going to knock off, Kansas or whoever's going to get the seed in that region. But this will be one of those years that there's going to be a lot of weirdness to it, and don't a clear-cut winner. The hottest team in the nation right now just might be Michigan. The hottest team right now just might be those Wolverines, and they put it to some very good teams, including Michigan State and Purdue. This is a team that I think you may not want to play because they're playing as good as almost anybody in the country right now. In that, the pageantry around college sports is always very magical. Now, West Virginia, where I think the mascot isn't it the hillbilly or mountaineer? He's a mountaineer.
He is a mountaineer,
but he looks like the ling dong dong ding. Like this is, and they shoot that musket. Okay, a musket. They shoot it indoors. Sounds like a great idea to me. You got to see this guy, buckskin, the whole thing. So West Virginia, and so the Mountaineers come up with this idea where it's like musical chairs but with basketballs. So at halftime, instead of shooting for the $1 million, I'm not sure how much this was worth, but it was like guys sit in these 5 chairs, and then they pare it down, and the 2 guys that go down to the end of the court, layup. Then they run back and sit down. So eventually you're going to get to 2. That's where the competition really heats up in front of the 14,000 at West Virginia. One guy starts to lose, and it's obvious because there's only 2 left. One guy's already sunk his ball and is drilling the ball back to win the cash. His reaction is something Dave and I would do. I wish I could say it would be better, but what this guy does is absolutely, in a really awful way, the best way. Here they come. So one guy scores first. So the other guy's going to lose. And boom! What a throw! And he knocks out all the other chairs. That's like superhero-like. If you were a terrible superhero.
He should have won something just for that shot.
He nails that guy with the single throw. You got to love that. Don't you think you would do that if I'm losing? If I'm losing, I'm taking him out.
There's a lot of people there watching. I don't know.
I would. There's 14,000 people screaming. I'm taking aim. And he got him.
Yeah, because he's the frustration of not, because when you sign up for one of these games at halftime, during the break, intermission, whatever it is, you're there to win. You're not there to you finish second. You want to win the gift certificate, the free year of pizza, the autographed authentic jersey of your favorite team. I mean, there's some pretty good prizes. Like I remember,
like what if it was $10,000? I'm throwing the ball.
I'm looking for a second ball to throw too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I remember last.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah, fire.
Guy comes in on a breakaway.
Yeah.
And let's say so you're playing. It's OHL hockey, or you're playing in the dub. Guy's going to put it in the empty net. Do you throw your stick?
Well, that's a penalty shot, right?
But he's got an open net.
But yeah, you prevent that from happening because you'll have.
And I'm throwing it like this too, the full tomahawk.
Okay, I don't know if I'm doing it overhead.
Good.
I don't know if I'm
going.
Baby. I don't know if I'm going full Willie Platt.
Last of the Mohicans.
But I am going maybe sidearm, right?
Sidearm.
Well,
nice,
you sidearm it, you aim for the puck, and you probably get a little more than just the puck. And
you look like a goon. I get it.
You do.
People think that was bush league. Yeah, but if it works.
Yeah, well.
If it works.
Sorry, that's just the way it is.
That was classic. So, once again, and we'll have a little bit of a March Madness special before the brackets go. So, we're going to try to get a hold of Will Strickland and others. You know what? I think we can cheat a little bit. I think we can get a hold of Leo Routens. We know he's a Syracuse guy. I see maybe even Matt Devlin. We get Matty on there. And, of course, again, we'll talk about the Raptors as they continue to look very, very good going into the time of year that this is where it's you know what I mean? You're getting into March. So you're going to run out of track pretty soon. It's you played a lot of games, you played a lot of nights. The one thing that I can always say about a Raptors team, it's very rare that they have a reputation of mailing it in. under Coach Casey, I can't think of many even individual players that you thought they were lazy or they weren't giving a full effort. I think the last guy I can think of that I really would say that about, and it was just ended up being the worst trade. And I didn't feel about this guy always, but when Hito Turkoglu came to the Raptors, I was like, you lazy prick. Remember that time he said he had the flu and he was in Yorkville doing karaoke?
Yep.
Okay, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff where I think there might be an issue. But this team is one that comes in, plays hard every night. So, look, that team, I would say, the Raptor team, even though it's always this is a Leaf City. Will always be a Toronto Maple Leaf City in Toronto. But there is a lot of love. And the Blue Jays get love when they play well. When they don't, it's just kind of the harder core guys who like baseball, been baseball fans forever. They still showed up at the park. They'll still watch.
And that's what I'll be curious about this year, because when I first came to Toronto in the early 2000s, it was friends and family night every single night with the Blue Jays, right?
And then some of those draw, like Baltimore would come into town.
Yep.
I don't know what they'd announce, but there probably was 12 or 13,000.
And that's what I'm curious about. Is it going to be 12 or 13,000? Or is it now going to be 15, 16,000 because of the little bit of success they've had within the last 4 or 5 years?
I think, I think as it gets closer, if it does not go well, you start to see that slide.
Dwindle, yeah.
You're going to see just
tickets may be very easy to find if you're a Blue Jay fan in August and September.
And if they become sellers, which at some point, I'm telling you,
they very well could be.
You're going to have to be.
Yep.
So who's the number one? Is it the bringer of rain? Is he the biggest attraction you've got right now?
Yes, 100%.
For other teams.
For other teams, yeah. And that's the number one question on how fast they will sell on him, because it doesn't look like they're going to be offering him any
you got to get
contract
someday.
of value. Yeah.
We just talked about hanging on to guys too long.
Don't let him Chris Bosh the organization where you get 0 for your number one asset. And that's why part of me is actually kind of surprised that this offseason he wasn't packaged, because there were takers for this guy. There were a lot of teams interested in bolstering their third base side and their left side of the infield. A guy like Josh Donaldson, too, especially for a stretch drive, should probably command 3 to 4 prospects. I don't know if they're going to be people that you'd plug into your lineup in September, but if you're the Blue Jays, you're looking for the future. You're not looking for players that are going to get the return and actually play on your team this season after that deadline in July. So we'll see, but I don't think Donaldson is going to be here after this season, and that's kind of too bad, because it kind of tells you where this team has gone since going back-to-back playoff appearances and making some pretty good noise in the American League.
Vegas goes on the road. This is and again, I'm just going to skip back here quickly to hockey. So the Golden Knights going into New Jersey.
Yep.
So New Jersey is going to give you a fight at home, certainly. And it's never an easy game. You're coming from that time zone. If you're Vegas, you're on the road trip, you go to New Jersey. That's one where I think that they could skip up a little bit. They still win, Dave.
Yeah,
they find ways to win where I think if you were going to give them a pass,
and
it might have been yesterday.
And yesterday, no James Neal, no Nate Schmidt in the lineup. These are key players, especially James Neal. I don't understand that. I know this team is good, but eventually doesn't the bottom have to fall out eventually for the Vegas Golden Knights?
Well, I know you keep cheering for that.
Yeah.
You keep mentioning that from time to time.
I'm just saying.
In the same way you praise the Maple Leafs, not.
Hey, the Leafs will win tonight. I'll guarantee you that. How's that?
Sabres.
Yeah,
God, it's just so annoying.
I know.
Yeah, this is the night you go, yeah, okay, for sure, puck line.
Yeah. You totally look at that.
Yeah, and they'll win 3-2. Like, you bastards.
By the way, I'll look at some numbers. I don't think that number is very good anyway for puck line. I'm just saying. You're playing the Sabres.
All right, let's take a look then.
Okay.
Let's take a look tonight, Dave, at the NHL. Let's play some exciting music here. Hold on. Where's that guy with the here we go. Here's okay, get off here.
Yep.
Here we go.
There we go. So here we go. So money line tonight. You got Toronto paying $1.50 and Buffalo paying $2.70. Puck line tonight, which means the Leafs have to win by 2 goals. It's respectable. It's a 255.
255 is something that I would.
That's actually not that bad.
In terms of trolling a guy like me, and I'm like, 255 in Buffalo. I'm all over it. but I've been burned twice on hockey. Now, St. Louis kind of went for a little bit of a nosedive there for a while, and I think I must have caught it right in there. But when Buffalo goes in and beats Boston, wasn't it like 4-1 or something embarrassing?
Yep. No, exactly.
Hate getting caught on that. Ottawa at Dallas. What is Dallas is a 230 on the puck line. Because money lines are useless. What are you going to gamble and win a 1-3-8?
And Ottawa's coming off a Friday night win against Vegas, by the way, in Vegas. What the hell happened there? I don't get that.
So they've maybe had some time to spend time in Vegas.
Yeah, maybe they did. You know what? I'd be more inclined to go puck line on the Dallas Stars, paying $230 to beat the Senators by 2 or more goals. You're not really getting much value at 138 for a money line win for the Dallas Stars at home tonight. So.
And let's talk about the game of the night in the National Hockey League, Dave. That, of course, would be Arizona at Edmonton.
Oh, it's a big-time game of the night. Edmonton, of course, favorite to win this game. Puck line on the Edmonton Oilers is a 2.75.
I know. Again, tempting.
It is, but if you look at what the Coyotes have actually done in the last 30 days, they're a top 10 NHL team.
That's why
that's
really got
the weird part. That's the weird part.
Hockey, you got to look at that trend where they've come in, where they're going, because they got to hit that spot, the sweet spot where they win 2 or 3 games, which they don't deserve to win, but they do. But that's that's not some bad money. Islanders in Vancouver couldn't pay me to watch that game. Ugh. The Islanders, this is almost virtually, I think, when I look at numbers like that, a little bit of a pick 'em.
Yep. Oh, by the way, getting reports from the Russell Graham news desk that Jay Bolmeister is out for the next 4 to 6 months. So the St. Louis Blues are taking a little bit of a beating on the back end, and rightfully so. I don't even know if the St. Louis Blues team makes the postseason.
They look terrible.
They look really terrible.
They fell right off the planet.
If you rewind this show 3-4 months ago, the St. Louis Blues were one of the best teams in hockey.
And I thought if they get in as like an 8th seed, that's going to be that typical Western, just like when the Kings did it, and there's been a bunch of them that they underperformed. They start to play towards the end of the season. They're almost the best 8th seed in the world that you'll have.
Yep. Which
is why I also talk about seedings in NCAA basketball. It's like, oh, yeah, they got some teams that are way lower seeded than they should be. And that's what happens. But you know what? For St. Louis, boy, did they fall. They just fell right off the planet.
That's an anvil. That's an anvil drop for the St. Louis Blues. If you're actually looking at the standings as of this morning for a wild card, first in the Eastern Conference, you'd have Toronto matching up with Boston. You'd have Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, which would be a fantastic first-round matchup. You'd have Tampa Bay opening up against Columbus in the first round. And you'd have the Washington Capitals hosting New Jersey. That would be a first-round matchups. On the Western Conference, I love this matchup. If this were to stick, I would pay for this right now. Winnipeg would open up against Minnesota. San Jose would open up against Anaheim. The number 1 seed, Vegas Golden Knights, would the number 2 seed Vegas Golden Knights, my mistake there, would host Dallas, which they would lose to in the first round. And the Nashville Predators, who seem to be world beaters as of late, would open against the Los Angeles Kings of Los Angeles.
I just wonder, Anaheim, how good is Anaheim? Are they sneaky good?
John Gibson's back from injury. That's a pretty key pickup as far as a guy that they had on the sidelines for a while. I think they match up well against San Jose. I think that you could sit there and pull 10 people, and 5 might take the Sharks, 5 might take the Ducks. So it's not one of those where you go, they don't have a prayer. They're separated by 1 point in the standings. They both played the same amount of games, and don't be surprised if they're still there at the end. But the Kings want to have something to say about that. They're only 1 point away from the Ducks, 2 points away from the Sharks, so they're still in contention for the 2-3 spot. Nobody's chasing Vegas right now. Nobody will track them down. Vegas will win the Pacific, which is unheard of.
Incredible what they've done. Okay, before we leave you, we've had a lot of inspiring stories. I think Ken McDonald coming in, you're talking about a guy, Dartmouth, Stanford, educated people. But we can't leave on such a high note. It's always got to be a low note on this show. And here's one that I particularly enjoy. So here is a street performer. I believe this is from London. I don't think it's Dublin. I'm pretty sure it's London. He is singing a song, if you listen to the words, about holding hands and holding each other. It's about love and support. Of course, as he's singing the song, there is an old homeless man who is mocking him and touching his shoulder. Well, pretty quickly, as he finishes the song about love and togetherness, it takes a turn when he flips him on his head.
Water, lonely water, won't you let us wonder? Let us hold each other. Lonely,
Homeless guy putting on a show behind him. He doesn't like it.
lonely water, won't you let us wonder?
It's a lovely song.
Let us hold each other.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then the homeless man continues his show. And then after the love and peace,
Oh, jeez.
homeless man head hits the pavement
Oh, jeez.
like a coconut. Not unlike what I did to my friend Keith Gookin when I was about 8
that
years
sound.
Sorry about that, but I'm not going to have homeless people touching me while I'm playing songs. Thank
old.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. That was. I think he was Irish the way he was talking like that. I don't want a harmless person touching me when I'm playing my music. That's a pretty good throw. So what have we learned?
It's like hip toss homeless people. That guy was all over it.
So what have we learned today from Mike and Dave? Two things. Number one, if you're losing an event in public,
Yeah.
there is no shame in throwing an object at someone to make them fall down. And if a homeless guy is bugging you, throw him over your shoulder.
What?
You are welcome, kids.
Just become best friends? Yep.
This is why. Listen.
You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time!
I'd like to thank Ken McDonald. He was pretty awesome, representing Team Snap, the Chief Growth Officer. But he does many, many more things, including that book you might want to pick up, which is about online business and how to do it as a growth-based business from the digital perspective. Pretty smart guy, as he said, Dartmouth and Stanford. Russell can't even spell Stanford.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Actually, he's probably the only one in the room who can spell Stanford. They got to get a better mascot, seriously. Cardinal? People thought it was the bird? No. A pine tree. And I thought they were smart. Have yourself a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Do we have Warren Sockhew?
Warren Sockhew.
Oh, good man. See you tomorrow.